Welcome to Hair Heroes. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have a very special guest that I know you're going to enjoy in this 4-part series. We're going to celebrate and explore the life of Alexander Turnbull, an extraordinary gentleman who started in the business at the age of 14, got addicted to the world of competing because he started to win, and went on to win some major awards within our industry. He then went on to become the artistic director for Matrix, and he traveled the world. This gentleman is as comfortable in his salon, which he owned for 19 years. He's comfortable in a studio, TV set, you name it, he's comfortable. But one of the things that he has is a passion for wigs. And with that said, he has created a beautiful collection, which we're going to discover more about today. So I'd like you to check out and give a warm welcome, a virtual wave to our fabulous Alexander. Welcome, Alexander. It's so lovely to have you here today.
Hi Vivienne, how are you?
Good. So I have told our friends a little bit about you, and we're going on a journey of 4 episodes in the Hair Heroes to explore more about your world, your thinking. And I've always been so fascinated to understand the mindset of success and to surround myself with people always better than myself and to always have mentors and just learn their thinking process. And I think sometimes in our industry, we get so caught up in the technical part of the process that we forget about the mindfulness of how we spend our time, how we set goals, how we achieve things in our lives. So I think diving into your world is going to be very, very exciting to just kind of look at that. So I'd like to hear from you the story of you as the 14-year-old, your mum saying you were a naughty little boy, which somehow does not surprise me. You've just still got that naughty boy expression.
I do, and I can't get rid of it. I mean, you know, I mean, even my kids. I mean, my son now he's got to an age where he'll roll his eyes and go, oh, "Daddy, grow up," and please grow up, and like stop being silly and don't you're not cool and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, me as the 14-year-old hairdresser. I mean, so a little bit about me. I mean, I'm dyslexic, right, and I make no bones about it at all. I've got severe dyslexia in literacy, and I've got severe dyslexia in numeracy. My IQ is well above average. So I had like this IQ that was okay, and not being able to get all this down on paper. So ultimately, I became extremely frustrated. And I didn't like being called stupid. I didn't like being called thick, but I couldn't really do an awful lot about that because I was not being able to succeed in the academic fashion, because of my dyslexia. Now because of that, I developed a very quick and easy way of surviving in school, and that was by being the class clown, just by telling jokes and, being fun. I'm not a nasty person. I was just, I liked, and that was a coping mechanism, really. And my mum, bless her, she's no longer with us, but she, my mum was a huge part of my life. The love of my life, complete mummy's boy, always will be. And my mum really helped me with my confidence, with my dyslexia. She got me involved in the Dyslexia Institute. She helped me develop a set of tools which would help me get through what I needed to get through. And ultimately, what my mum instilled in me was build on your strengths. And I am happy to talk about my things which I've found challenging because it helps other people build on their strengths. So, okay, I wasn't great at the writing and all the rest of it, but I did have a creative element. I liked colour, I liked shape. I loved going to the hairdressers and having my hair cut and stuff. So when it came to the careers and going to work experience, which you do at 14 years old in England, I'd put down to go to a school because I thought, well, I'll finish early and, I'll get school dinners and all that stuff. But my mum was having none of that. And she went in and said, really, my son needs to be in a salon. I think he'll do well in there. I went to Mark Hill, who was in my village. Mark is a good pal of mine. And You know, he's a very successful hairdresser in his own right, and I got my Saturday boy job, and every night after school I went on my BMX and parked my bike behind Mrs. Langham's house, who was my first client for shampoo and set, and you know, started training. I got a doll's head and started practicing shampoo and sets and pin curls and finger waves, and I became quite good at doing hair because I put a lot of effort in, and all of the aspects of my life which I found challenging at school and the things that I wasn't very good at, I realised I was actually okay at doing hair. So I put my head down, I worked really hard, and it was all right.
You know, you said something very important, practice. And I
Yeah,
think today, because we see instant transformations, you know, the 1 minute video on Instagram, we don't realize sometimes how much is edited out. And we don't realize that truthfully that hairstyle to do it from beginning to end may have been an hour, but we just saw a summation in 30 seconds or a minute. And so it leads us to believe, even on a subconscious level, that it's very quick and very doable. And I think what happens today, more than when we were growing up, is that when people then go, okay, now I'm going to start breaking down this hairstyle and working through it, it takes a while. And we don't necessarily get it right the first time. Why would we? Where we've got our training wheels on. And the practice and the practice and the practice. And I sometimes feel like a broken record when I'm helping people and training people, saying, do you know the amount of hours you need to do to practice in order to make that right? What is your attitude around practice?
oh, I mean, okay, so I mean, you know, I'm classically trained. I'm old school. I mean, Mark Hill was classically trained by a lady called Lucy, who was classically trained by a lady called Dorothea English, who was a British champion. She passed this training on to Lucy, who, again, bless her, she's passed away now. So Lucy, this lady, did not let me get off shampoo and setting for 2 years. Okay, and I knew I had half rollers. I would roll the rollers in one direction to this direction to create different waves and movements. And at the time, I thought Lucy was the worst person in the world, and all I could see was the other people blow drying and doing tips, and I wanted to do all the cool stuff. But because of that element of practice, the foundations in my fingers are still there. And I mean, when we talk about my work later, I love texture and I love all these big wacky hairstyles. But ultimately, I began my training classically trained, doing very, very clean stuff. And it's those elements that have allowed me to be able to carry on. And certainly, when I was training my staff, if they wanted to use a cutthroat razor, they would have to be able to shave a balloon, you know, many, many, many times without popping it. They would always start on shampoo and setting, and they would have to do at least 2 or 3 shampoo and sets before I would let them move on to anything else. And I just think it's the school of hard knocks, but if you want to do all the weird and wonderful and wacky stuff, you've got to have those basics first. I really do think practice is so important. And one thing I do think is quite sad is, you know, like there was no Instagram when I started. I had to go into the books, and Mark, as my boss, was very, you know, he'd say, right, this week's homework, I want you to study the work of Aldo Coppola. So I'd go away and I'd look in these books, and he'd say, right, what do you like? So I'd go back to, I love that picture. And I didn't realise what Mark was doing at the time. But Mark then was figuring out my taste level and what kind of stylist I was going to be. But also he was allowing me to figure out the stylist I was going to be, because I didn't know. You know, I was 14, 15 years old, used to playing rugby and BMXing and all that stuff, suddenly in this very feminine world, wanting to be the best hairdresser in the world, but, you know, not being able to hold it home. So,
I love that. I love that. So if you could now look back, we said 14 you started off, which would be amazing for anyone here watching in the United States to think you started in hair at the age of 14 is extraordinary, but how wonderful is that? If you could look back now, the Alexander today, and give advice to the 20-year-old Alexander, what advice would you give that young boy?
we are talking from a purely hair perspective, aren't we?
Yeah, I think maybe we should say hair and business.
Only kidding. Do you know what? I mean, the Green Cross Code in England, which is the road safety thing, stop, look, and listen. You know, that's probably what I'd say to myself, because I was I was so lucky, and I got to see so many things. And I think Robbie Williams says in a song, youth is wasted on the young before you know it's come and gone. And I think certainly if I could just tell myself to just stop, look, listen, and breathe and take it in, because I'm sure there's been so many wonderful things that I've missed because of naivety or not realizing how fortunate I was at the time. And I just think take it all in and enjoy it. You know, there's certain things in life I've got terribly upset about and terribly distressed about and terribly, you know, turmoil and things. We really didn't need to. You know, life is there to be enjoyed. There's so many serious things within the world of hair business and just day to day. Try enjoy every minute.
That's great advice. I love that. I love that. Stop, look, and listen. Is that what you said? Stop, look, and listen. That's correct order?
Yes.
Clearly, it's a long time since I did. That was the highway code, right?
You've got to look. You've got to draw inspiration from everywhere.
That's right. That's right. I think I remember that when I was on my bicycle. I don't know. Didn't you fail your driving test here in America?
I did, and I didn't just fail it once, Vivienne. I failed it 3 times. Thank you. You know, and do you know what the worst thing was? It's like, I mean, I've been driving since I was 17 in England, right? So I get here, and you know, I mean, when I moved here, I was in my late 30s. I'm now in my 40s, but you know, I get there and think, oh, this is going to be a doddle. And first one I failed. I thought, oh well, that's nothing. And then it starts getting worse. I mean, on the second attempt, I even thought that me and this lady were going to go out for dinner and we'd become the best of friends and all sorts, chatting to me. And at the end, she went, "It's been lovely talking to you, Mr. Turnbull, but I'm sorry you failed." I'm like, oh, God. So anyway, eventually I passed the Eventually I passed.
That is so funny. Well, thank goodness you did, because when I come to see you, I expect you to drive me around.
Yeah, right. I'll have a big flashing light on warning everybody that we're coming.
Yeah, really. So when you look at your longevity in the business, how many years now in the industry?
26 years in the industry now, yeah.
Okay, 26 years. You're still passionate. You love hair. If you could strip it down and say, right, I'm only going to give you 3 things that have held you together, the passion together, your drive together. What would those 3 things be? And are these 3 things that we could actually apply to our own lives? So guys, as you're listening to Alexander, he's going to give you 3 very important things that have worked for him. You're going to now ask yourself, will that work for me as well? Because maybe today's your lucky day. Okay, over to you.
I like the little dance that goes with it, Viv. Right. I mean, I think surround yourself with good people. I mean, I've always believed that ethos with a lot of things. I had a great team when I had my salon, and I tried to surround myself with hairdressers that were better at things than I was. Or like, you know, I mean, I'm decent at doing braids, but I'm not the best. I've got big fingers and all the rest of it. So my assistant was better at me at braiding. So, you know, I would always be able to like learn a little bit of something from her. And then, you know, the girl I used to work with, and she was my right-hand man for ages, she was an amazing colorist, and she looked at color differently to how I looked at color, so that I would get a different insight onto that. So I think surround yourself with good people, be respectful, you know, be respectful of other people. And if other people have done something and it wouldn't be the way you do it, remember, hair is subjective. It's an art form, you know, and our clients choose us because of the way that we do things. So, you know, it might be right for one person, it's right for another. To be respectful. And one thing I always did at an early age was try and make good friends within the industry that I could call on for advice, whether it be for business, artistic, or just friendly advice. Like, you know, like you and I are chatting now, Viv, you know, I found that very, very, very important. And, you know, respect people, surround yourself with good people, and gain some good friends within the industry.
I love that. I love that. And I think that that's more poignant today because we live in the digital place. So yeah, to go out there and reach out and connect, because people lead to people, and those connections are so important. Great advice. Okay, so now we're going to see a little hair demo, something exciting. I asked Alexander to show me a little trick, something that he really enjoys doing, and to see some magic from these hands. So are you ready to rock and roll?
I am ready to rock and roll.
So guys, I asked Alexander if he could show me a couple of really great tricks. So I said to him, the most important thing is how we secure this mannequin together so that the wig doesn't go flying. So as I was watching him pin, I was thinking, oh my God, you'd be really good at acupuncture. So on a human, you'd use a nail, but he's going to use a pin. So why don't you just show us, Alexander?
A nail. Okay, so this, ladies and gentlemen, is called a T-pin. Okay, so it's a little pin, and it's like a letter T on the top. So what I do, okay, so Viv might use a 4-inch nail. I just use the little T-pins. Okay, so I put one on the top. I put one on this side, and I'm just going to show you the last one. Now, this mannequin is one of our Renee Paris mannequins, so I use these regularly to work on. But, you don't have to use these. You could use the styrofoam head. So these are quite tough. But once it's in, it's good. So,
And then, of course, you could always use a staple gun, couldn't you, on a client?
you could use a staple gun on a client. Yeah, you could do that. I mean, you know.
We are joking, guys. We are joking. We're not being serious here about this. So don't use a 4-inch. Don't use a 4-inch nail. Don't use a staple gun. But there's been many a time in locking down that wig and not having it pop, which is the dreaded "I'm wearing a wig" look. When it pops and rises, you do need to get them nice and secure. So tell us what you're going to do, young man.
So okay. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a hair weight removal technique, which also will also put in like an invisible shattered layer. So depending how much you do around the front and depending how much you go. So I'm going to do an invisible shattered layer and also weight removal. Okay, so first off, I'm going to get my scissors, okay? So I am going in with a Mackinder scissor today. And I love these scissors, Mackinder. This is the Arrow, and this is a tapering scissor. All right. Now, I have a real issue, and it's a personal issue with people saying the word thinning scissors. It just for me, maybe because I work in hair loss, the idea of thinning someone's hair just doesn't work really well for me. So I call these tapering scissors. So tapering to give a tapered edge, nice fine teeth here, and a straight edge here. Now I'm actually, as well as a hairdresser, a classically trained barber, so I'm quite used to blending and stuff. So I have to be aware and take my barbering head off and put my ladies' hairdressing head on with it. So I'm just going to move it here. So just want to come to the side. So for all you colorists out there who are big on the weave. When I say weave, I don't mean a weave like an extension. I mean like a weave, the woven colour, so for oils or easy mesh or whichever. You're going to do something similar with the scissor, okay? So we're going to take this, and this bottom piece is going to be like the pintail comb. So if you see, I'm weaving that out like so.
Beautiful.
And leaving that piece of hair, and then just gently taking that through. And then what I do is then I comb it, and I use the mirror. So the mirror is what we use in the salon, okay? And I'm using the phone video thing for this thing. But can you see already the side?
Yeah.
It just takes it in. So
beautiful.
Ultimately, when we make wigs, okay, we'll make them with most of the hair in there, but we're selling to a lot of people with a lot of different face shapes. So our wigs are ready to wear, but if you did have one of our wigs and wanted some alterations, obviously, goes without saying, has to be a licensed professional and somebody that specialises in wigs,
I love that. after you've done that, so that we can really see you gliding down the hair shaft as opposed to just stopping, maybe you could turn her around so we can see how you're sliding a little bit. But wow, what a difference between left and right. The left looks as though it's more natural, and the other side looks more like a bubble. And of course it's beautiful, but I'm loving the side you already cut. That's gorgeous.
Thank you very much, because that's, you know, I'm a very firm believer in less is more. You know, um, one of my big sayings is, it's not what you sometimes take off a haircut, it's what you leave on.
Yeah.
These kind of things that we know. So, have you got a good?
Yeah, that's great. That's fabulous. Fabulous.
So then, with the comb just underneath, I'm just
Yeah.
separating. So you can actually see what I've weaved. Can you see the silver of the
Yeah.
scissor? And then right here, and then I'm putting, see the angle of my scissor,
Yeah.
and then I'm on the angle, because if I'm on this angle like this, the heel of the scissor, which is the middle area here,
Yeah.
the heel, by being pivoted on this angle, will create a bevel and a shape around the front.
Beautiful.
So I'm going to do this again a couple of times, okay? And then you'll really see the difference in left and right. But one thing I quite like about this technique is it's very forgiving, okay? Which kind of means, like, you know, I've not only just woven some hair out, I'm actually using a tapering scissor which won't lose all of the hair. So you can take it steady, you can use this technique, you can go back and forward, and you're not going to get rid of all of the hair in one go. So if you are a bit nervous about working with wigs, you don't want to take too much hair off, this is a great technique to just work yourself into it very, very gently. Because all we're trying to do, we're not trying to restyle Posh, we're just trying to alter the shape slightly, bearing in mind we think we have a client with a smaller face.
I love that. And also, as you're going through there, being very clear about where you want that softness to be. You know, is it at the cheekbone or is it the jaw? So it's strategic. And the other thing that I think there's also very important about this is how seamless it looks. And when you look at a real head of hair, obviously the hair is aged. When there's not a bob, isn't all hair that's uh, 3 years old. That even a one length bob has hair that is a month old, 6 months old. So there's the aging of the hair, and to me, this is a beautiful way to make it look very, very real, because you're giving layers within the layers, and you're kind of ghosting the layers through, which I think is absolutely gorgeous.
Well, thank you very much. And it worked. And the thing is, as well, I liked it, because hairdressers, when they first start working with wigs, and rightly so, are a bit nervous because, you know, it doesn't grow. So
Yeah.
I like to give techniques which you can build on. And you know what? If the haircut takes you an hour to begin with, who cares? Rather take an hour and get it right than you know, try to do it in 10, 15 minutes and do something wrong, you know? And
So
then
if you were working on a human head of hair, would you ever use this technique wet, or do you prefer to always do it on dry hair?
always dry for me.
Okay.
Always, you know, but I mean, look, I mean, obviously this is why I love hair so much, because everyone is so different, everyone has a different idea. But for me, I like to work with it dry, you know, and I like it to be in the shape or style that somebody would wear that hair in.
Got it.
Because sometimes, and you know, sometimes I have to cut hair wrong for it to look right, based on who that person is. So that's down to per. We can really see the difference, can't we?
Yes. Beautiful. Love it. Love it. I bet many of our friends watching can't wait to try this technique on their clients. And I also think it would be very good around the crown area. Sometimes when we layer, do a long layer, and the top layer can sometimes sit like a bit of a mushroom because the layer is heavier there. And obviously there's many ways to debulk, but this would be, I think, a very, very interesting way to just even debulk in that area, which is really very, very beautiful. Do you use the razor very much on your wig?
I love razor cutting. I really, really do love razor cutting. But I don't. I probably use a tapering scissor 90% of the time, and I use a razor and a straight scissor the other 10% of the time within wig cutting. So Okay, so I mean, here we have, like, what I'm going to do, just for a bit more of a demo. I'm going to finish off with the taper into this. So I'm now going into the taper into like this, turning that round. I have a method for this and a trick which I'll share with you. So I call this the ticking clock. Okay,
Yeah.
12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, depending which way I turn it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now the idea is with that, because it's got the teeth in here, if I chop at 12, chop at 1, chop at 2, chop at 3, and in that motion, in that half present motion, I'm creating weight within the hair that creates shape to encourage that to swing round. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that description. Very clear. It's a great visual. And I'm sure our friends will be going, oh yes, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And clearly when the hair is dry, you're not visualizing how it's going to be when it's dry. You can see the guesswork's taken out of it. And then of course it's having the control, isn't it? And as you said before in our conversation, the dexterity skill and the foundational work that you had in your training all starts to pay off now, because obviously dry hair is a little bit more tricky to control than wet hair. So that's beautiful. It's amazing how she's slender. You just gave her liposuction. She just lost weight, but she's still got the same length. And I think there's many a woman out there that doesn't want to see the layers. They want those invisible layers. They want to keep their length, but they want something new. And in a very gentle way, you are actually doing that. So now my question is, and I'm loving that we're just doing this one side so we can see the contrast. So my question is, how do you know when to stop?
Okay. So how do you know when to stop? I mean, that is such. I mean, I feel like we could do a whole episode on that one question, because it's like, when do you stop on a photo shoot when you've got the perfect picture? When do you stop with a client? When do you stop applying that toner before it turns blue, before it turns this color? Yeah. There's so many things, and again, if I'm a little bit unsure, especially on set, I'll have what I call a third eye, and somebody that I trust to be able to say, you've got the shot, you've got the picture, that's it, Alex, you've got it, that looks great. But you know what? With one of these, how to know when to stop is communication. Communication. Talk to your client. I'll have a chat with Tosh. How does that feel for you, Tosh? And then I'll come back like this. So I've done this with this side. Do you like the weight in this side? Oh no, she says. Do you want to use a bit more weight out? Okay, no problem. So I think at this stage, when the finished look of when you stop would be subjective to what you find attractive, I think you need to be checking in with the client,
Mm-hmm.
So what I'd probably be doing, I'm going with the ticking clock again. 1, 12, 1, 2, 3.
Beautiful.
12, 1, 2, 3. 12, 1, 2, 3. And what I'm going to do, just to finally finish off, is I'm going to personalize it with the traits again. Now, you don't need to, by the way. You could keep all of this corner on, which looks gorgeous. Don't get me wrong, I love that corner. But I just think, and I'd be happy to leave that corner on for a client if you wanted it. I just want to show our friends a little bit more technique. So you could, what I'm trying to say is, you could stop here and have a great shape and just put this side. Just now, do you see how there's a wispy there?
Yes. Yeah.
So if you were concerned that could feel bitty, or you may have a client when something is over textured, that they run that onto the bottom and they say, well, I like the length, but it doesn't feel very solid, then I would just come in using a point clipping technique. And point clipping as well can be used to remove weight and create texture. So the idea is, if you take a scissor vertically, you will remove weight. And the more you angle that scissor, the more you take out, which thus creates a different texture.
Yeah.
So I'm just removing weight and creating a little bit of solidarity and manipulating the shape to frame the face a little bit. And then I just let it go down.
Beautiful. It's amazing how a little made a huge difference too.
Well, and that's the thing, you know. I mean, we all can do the very very big haircut, can't we?
Yes.
Uh, It, it, I do like doing the soft little changes that make those huge difference. I sometimes find that visually, fits a
Well,
treat.
also too, for your client, if this is on her own hair, these subtle changes are not such a major shift. It's understood and it's enough just for a little feeling of sparkle without something radical. And a small shift is much easier to sell than a major transformation. And also the fact that you've taken this gorgeous wig and you've customized it and detailed it to whoever would be wearing it so that you're balancing it to her face shape, and obviously, if you've got a client with a round head, a wig is going to sit differently on it to a client who's got an oval head. And so the size of the skull, the size of the head is going to be very important. So I think it's wonderful, Alexander, that you're showing us the customization here and the beauty of this look and how this lovely detailing is really, really gorgeous. And how you're sort of actually lifting and opening up the face by shaping around like this. It's really sensational.
Oh well, thank you. And the thing is, as much as what I'm trying to do is I don't want to change the hairstyle because it's beautiful. It's just I'm trying to put myself in the eyes of, like you said, Vic, really, which is amazing. Is we don't know who's coming through the door. We don't know their head shape. We don't know their lifestyle. You might have the perfect hairdo, which suits that person, but if they don't feel good in it, they will never wear it with confidence. So
Yeah.
I just teaching a little couple of tricks on personalization and weight removal. So
Beautiful. Beautiful. Love it. Love it.
uh,
Love it. Love it.
uh, and the difference of two sides is massive.
Huge.
But as well, this is just another thing for us hairdressers out there. Because me as a hair cutter, I don't think that this is a huge change. That doesn't mean that the lady sat in our chair wouldn't think that this was a massive change and that was way enough for her. Because there's lots of times I've had a client say they want a complete restyle, and their mental image of a restyle and mine are very, very different things. So,
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful job. Thank you so much for sharing such a lovely technique. I can't wait. I can't wait to do that. I can't wait to try that. So, guys, thank you so much for watching today. I've been very inspired by a little making a huge difference, the subtlety, using the mirror, the going in at the angles, the clock reference, the tapering. And I love that you're not calling them a thinning scissor because unless she's a troll sitting in your chair with a ton of most women would not, wouldn't appreciate thinning scissors. You're right. So I like that. So great advice. Some great advice about your career and inspiring us to step out and surround ourselves with people that will elevate and take us to our ultimate goal. So thank you so much, Alexander, for your wisdom, your talent, and your technique today.
oh, listen, thank you. The honour and the pleasure is all mine. I've really enjoyed it, Vivienne. Thank you so much.
Great. So, guys, thanks for watching and do check this series out. It's one of 4, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. And don't forget, tell your friends about what you've been watching and check out the beautiful collection by Alexander and get excited about being creative in the world of gorgeous wigs. Thank you so much, and bye for now.